My name is Dr. James Carter. I've been a cardiologist for over 20 years, but there's one patient I'll never forget: William. He was 70, a retired Navy sailor, and the proud grandpa of a 6-year-old boy named Ben. He survived storms out in the Pacific Ocean, but nearly lost his life to a quiet little pain in his chest. The first time I met William was in the ER. His face was pale. Sweat was pouring down his temples. His left hand trembled slightly, and his eyes had this distant, unfocused look. His wife said he was just getting up when he suddenly clutched his chest like he couldn't breathe. When I asked him what he felt, he nodded faintly and whispered, "It's not sharp pain. It's like someone placed a rock on my chest, hard, cold, and it's getting heavier every second." William had felt something similar a few days earlier, a vague pressure beneath his left chest, radiating gently up to his shoulder and down his arm. He brushed it off, thought it was from the salty food, or maybe gas, or the weather. But what he felt was his heart crying for help, quietly, invisibly. It wasn't a stabbing pain. It was dull, faint, easy to ignore, and that's exactly what makes it deadly. If I had known sooner, I would have gone to the doctor. I thought a heart attack had to be this intense, crushing pain. William said later, voice shaking, "I was in the Navy, Doc. I know what real pain feels like. This was just uncomfortable." That's how he described the first sign 4 days earlier on a Wednesday. He'd just finished dinner, his wife's salty braised pork his favorite. As he got up to clear the plates, he felt a slight pressure beneath his sternum. Not sharp. Just as if someone had placed a hand on his chest and gently pressed down. Then, that sensation slowly spread to his left shoulder, then down to his elbow. It wasn't numbness. It didn't burn. Just a bit heavy. He thought it was probably because he'd eaten too much, or maybe just his cervical spine acting up again. He walked out to the porch and took a few deep breaths. After a while, the discomfort faded. William sighed in relief. "It's nothing. I'm old now. This kind of thing happens sometimes." But over the next 3 days, the symptoms came back always after meals or when the weather turned cold. Each time, he'd just sit quietly, breathe deeply, and wait it out. What he didn't realize was that this was a textbook warning sign of advanced coronary artery disease, when hardened plaque silently narrows the arteries, slowly starving the heart of blood. His wife, Linda, had asked, "Are you okay? Should we go get it checked out?" But William shook his head. "It doesn't really hurt. Probably just heartburn, or too much salt." At 70, he'd lived through ocean storms. He'd broken ribs and never complained. So to him, this mild discomfort didn't seem like much. But that sense of toughness almost cost him the chance to ever see his grandson again. Tea was Sunday morning. William woke up early as usual. The air was crisp trees glistening with morning dew, and his grandson Ben was still fast asleep on the couch. "Grandpa, can we go fishing later today?" the boy had whispered the night before. William had smiled and nodded. They'd meet at their old fishing spot, the one where they'd caught the biggest fish of last summer. He made himself a cup of coffee. Standing in the kitchen, he stretched, then suddenly froze. A crushing pain clamped down on the left side of his chest, like an invisible hand squeezing his heart from the inside. This wasn't like before. This pain was heavy, violent. It shot up into his jaw, down his left shoulder, and wrapped around to his back. Sweat poured down his face. His hands trembled as he reached for the fridge to steady himself. His head spun. His breathing turned shallow, broken. "Linda," he whispered, but she didn't hear him. Thankfully, Linda stepped out of the bedroom just in time to see him hunched over, clutching his chest, eyes wide in panic. In that split second of terror, she screamed and dialed 911. 5 minutes later, the ambulance arrived. William could no longer speak. His pulse was faint, his hands ice cold. On the way to the hospital, his heart stopped for the first time. The EMTs started CPR right there on the highway. The EKG showed a full-blown ST elevation myocardial infarction, a total blockage of the left coronary artery. At the hospital, we immediately activated the emergency cardiac intervention protocol. Eye doctor James Carter stared at the angiogram screen, throat dry. 95% blockage in the main artery. We call it the Widowmaker. We placed the stent. Blood began to flow again. But it had already been over 90 minutes since his heart had first stopped. We got him back, his heart started beating again. The pulse returned. But the damage had been done. The part of his brain that controlled movement had gone without oxygen for too long. When William finally opened his eyes, hours later, he could no longer feel his legs. That mild chest pain, the one he brushed off, had now stolen his ability to walk for the rest of his life. When I opened my eyes, all I saw was that cold, white hospital ceiling. I saw my wife crying, but the moment that broke me was when I realized I couldn't feel my legs. William said, voice low and heavy. He had survived the heart attack, but the oxygen starvation had damaged his spinal cord. The neurologist confirmed permanent paralysis from the waist down. William said nothing. He just stared out the hospital window, watching the snow fall gently outside. That day, the man who had once dived into stormy seas and survived the wrath of the ocean cried like a child. The first few days after that were pure hell. What am I even alive for? I don't feel like a man anymore. I promised to take my grandson fishing. Now I can't even go to the bathroom on my own. He refused to eat, refused physical therapy, just lay there, eyes hollow, spirit absent. Linda Hess, wife of 45 years, sat by his bedside every single day holding his hand. And then Ben, his 6-year-old grandson, came in with a drawing, the two of them fishing again. Except this time, William was sitting in a wheelchair. You don't have to walk, Grandpa. Just tell me stories like you always do. That little drawing stirred something deep inside William's heart. A week later, he asked the rehab doctor to start physical therapy. I'm still alive. I have to do something with whatever life I have left. During his recovery, the hospital held a heart health talk for elderly patients and their families. Eye doctor James Carter asked William if he'd be willing to speak. He hesitated at first, then nodded. That day, William wheeled himself to the front of the room. His voice was still weak but steady. I used to think real men didn't need to worry about little aches and pains, but I almost died and lost the ability to walk because of that mindset. Don't be like me. After his talk, 4 people from the audience got their hearts checked that very afternoon. One of them was diagnosed with early-stage coronary artery disease. When William heard the news, he cried again this time because he realized his story had saved a life. I can't walk anymore, but I can roll these wheels to wherever people need to hear this warning. 6 weeks after nearly losing his life, William wheeled himself out of his house for the first time in his brand new wheelchair. On the back of his jacket, written in black marker by his grandson, Ben, my grandpa, survived a heart attack, so you can too. It started small, a few talks at the local nursing home. He told his story in a calm voice with eyes that still shone but carried the weight of what he'd been through. I am living proof. I ignored a mild chest pain, and I paid the price with my legs, but at least I'm still alive to tell the story. The room fell completely silent. Many seniors sitting in the audience began to nod. After each talk, the hospital received dozens of heart screening appointments. William continued. Each week, he visited 3 places: church, the community center, the library, and even the high school where his granddaughter studied. He was invited to join the Michigan State Heart Association's campaign, "Listen to your chest, not your pride." They called him the Heart Whisperer. One time after his talk, a 74-year-old woman approached him and held his hand. "Thanks to you, I realized the feeling in my chest lately wasn't normal. I went to the doctor the next day. They said I had just avoided a heart attack." William's story spread through local media. Newspapers covered it, and TV stations invited him to appear as an inspiring figure who survived a heart attack. He always appeared in a wheelchair with a small sign attached to the back that read, "Ask me what a silent heart attack feels like." No powerful voice, no grand speeches, but his words from eyes that had looked death in the face made people believe, listen, and take action. I once wished someone had told me sooner. Now, I'm that person for hundreds, even thousands of others. It was a summer morning. The sky was crystal blue, and sunlight danced softly across the surface of the old lake, the one William had once promised his grandson they'd return to. Benno, 7, was busy prepping the fishing rods. Beside him sat the familiar wheelchair occupied by a man whose smile had grown deeper, calmer than ever before. "Grandpa, do you think the fish will bite today? Why don't you give it a try, kiddo?" Catching fish doesn't matter today. What matters is that we're here. William sat quietly, one hand holding his fishing rod, the other clutching an old photograph, a picture of him and Ben, standing side by side, taken before the heart attack. He couldn't stand anymore, but he still had his voice, his memories, and a reason to keep going. Linda sat nearby, reading a book, 3 generations together, no need for words. And on the back of his wheelchair, the same sign remained, "Ask me what a silent heart attack feels like." His phone buzzed, a text from someone who had attended his talk the week before. "Just found out I have a 70% artery blockage. Thank you for sharing your story. You saved my life." William looked up at the sky and took a deep breath. "You know, Ben, Im's still a soldier. But now I don't fight to survive. I fight to pull others back from the edge before it's too late." Ben wrapped his arms around him from behind. "You're a superhero, Grandpa, whether you're standing or sitting." A gentle breeze passed through, and across the lake, the sunlight shimmered like a quiet blessing for hearts that choose to listen. Today, if you Google William Heart Attack Survivor, you'll find dozens of articles, videos, and health forums sharing his story. William, the man who nearly died from a chest pain he thought was nothing, has now helped thousands recognize the silent signals from their own hearts. He still travels in wheels, not on foot. No longer the quiet old man who hid his symptoms, he's become a warrior for awareness. If my pain can save your life, then it was worth it. William speaking to a standing ovation at a senior heart health conference. Dr. James Carter, the cardiologist who once fought to keep William alive, is now his close friend and partner in community health campaigns. And if you're reading this, if you've ever felt a tightness in your chest, even just a little, even just after dinner, don't guess, don't wait, don't brush it off. Get checked. Check your blood pressure. Listen to your heart before it makes its final cry. Because that may be your last chance to stay a little longer and to look someone you love in the eye and say, "I'm still here because I chose to listen."